AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Our host brings you the leading minds in AI, sharing their story, their success, and their advice. Focusing on fast-tracking you to the top, AI in Action cuts through the hype to help you kickstart your data science career. To listen to the latest AI in Action podcast, head over to www.alldus.com/podcast or subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Podcasts.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Anand Ranganathan. Anand is the Chief AI Officer for Unscrambl. Anand, welcome to the show.
Thanks, JP. Pleasure to be here.
No, it's our pleasure. Anand, let's start with yourself. Can you give us a brief background of how you first got involved in technology? Talk us through your journey leading up to your current position, leading things at Unscrambl.
Sure. So I did my undergraduate in India in the Indian Institute of Technology in Madras. I did that's probably when I got started. I did that in computer science and engineering. And then I went to do a PhD in the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, where I focused on the combination or the intersection of AI and distributed systems. So my research and my thesis topic was in a space called ubiquitous computing or pervasive computing, which is sort of the forerunner of IoT and smart homes and smart environments. So that's where I started my first work in the space of AI. And I was especially interested in how AI intersects with other areas of computer science like networking and distributed systems and human-computer interaction. After that, I joined IBM Research. I was working there as a research scientist for several years, mainly in their big data teams. So I was working in IBM's stream processing product. So that's the first streaming analytics product that's in the market. And I was especially focused on coming up with new ways of programming stream processing systems. How do you represent the knowledge about streams? And how do you help non-technical users make sense of streaming data in easy ways? I was also involved in a bunch of different very interesting applications of real-time analytics and stream processing technologies in domains like intelligent transportation, manufacturing, marketing, and many others. I think over the course of, I was at IBM for almost 10 years and I'd worked with about 15, 20 different clients of IBM, apart from working with the big data products at IBM. So I got a pretty nice mixture of experiences there, from pure research to working with customers to everything from pre-sales and marketing as well. So after about 10 years at IBM, I got the startup bug and I co-founded Unscrambl with a few of my ex-colleagues at IBM. And our goal was to build real-time analytics systems that would be easy to use by both developers and end users. But along the way, we took a few pivots, and we actually realized that many companies face fundamental problems in just getting access to data. Never mind it being real-time or streaming data. Many organizations were struggling to give access to the right data to their employees. So we came across statistics like only about 20 to 30% of employees in a company, decision makers in a company, have access to the right kinds of data when they need it. And it often takes them days or weeks from the time they decide they need some data to the time they actually get the data, even if the data is somewhere present in a database or data warehouse in their company. So we saw that as a big gaping hole that we could help tackle. And that's when we embarked on this journey in the space of conversational analytics. So that's a pretty new space. So Unscrambl's main product now, it's called Cubo Insights. It's in the space of conversational analytics. So what conversational analytics means is it allows people, typically non-technical users, but can be technical users as well, to ask questions in natural language as part of a conversation. And these questions get answered from data in databases. So under the covers, what happens is that we convert natural language to one or more SQL queries, pose those queries to the database, get back the answers, decide how best to further transform the answers, and then present the answers back to the end users. So that's where Unscrambl is at. We have a product out for the past few months now, which with pretty good reviews and lots of pilot customers. So pretty excited where we are. And I also think it's a very cutting edge and exciting place to be. I think Gartner actually estimates that in the next 5 years, most people are going to be asking questions against the database in natural language rather than coding SQL.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Anand. Really helpful to understand your journey, your background, but most importantly, the origins behind Unscrambl. You touched on the recent project, which is Cubo Insights and Cubo Decisions, and the growing trend of people using conversational analytics to diagnose problems. I know that you service various industries from aviation, fintech, retail to telecoms. Could you give us an example that would help demonstrate the impact that this technology can have for a particular client?
Sure. So some of our common use cases are dealing with finance data or sales data or transaction data. So we have customers in telecommunications, for instance, and other industries as well, where sales leaders, sales agents, as well as even C-level folks can ask questions like, what is my revenue in the last 6 months? Break it down by region, break it down further by month. Why is my revenue in February 2020 lower than that in January 2020? What are the key drivers behind this decrease in revenue? How did my number of customers change in this between January and February 2020? These are just a sequence of questions that our tool can answer. And the way it works is that the user system can just have access to a chat-like interface where they can ask these questions one by one. They keep getting more and more answers. They can keep drilling down in different ways. And as they keep asking for the more refined questions, they keep getting back either natural language text or charts or graphs or maps, depending on what the data looks like, to help them answer the questions. So it really tackles a space where people are not getting enough information in their predefined static dashboards, but they need to dig deeper into some interesting thing that happened in the company and figure out what's going on.
So the two big standouts for me as I listen to you describe this is one, it's instant access to non-technical staff of data, which is critical. But two is the media access and being able to cut out the steps which traditionally would have been speak to a tech team, have them come up with some queries, and then the pipeline of getting that information is dragged out much more. So it's very exciting. Focusing then on how you guys have evolved the technology from a startup idea to now growing it into a large organization with over 50 employees and servicing multiple industries. Can you talk about that journey? You know, what were some of the bottlenecks and challenges that you faced, and how you guys have successfully transitioned to where you're at now?
Sure. So it took us a little bit of time to get the right product market fit. So we had to, so early on when we started this product, we focused on a very chat-oriented interface where the key focus was people asking questions and getting back answers. We got interesting feedback from early users, and then we decided we had to really expand this. So it can't just be one-on-one chat. It had to be collaboration as well. So as we kept adding more and more features, we got more and more feedback, and it actually took a fair bit of time, I think, for us to come up with a rich enough set of features that people find it compelling and are now adopting it in growing numbers. So it was an interesting period where as soon as we thought we had something that was robust and strong enough, we would test it on the market, and then we get back more feedback. So I think it's probably true for most startups. You might estimate that it will take you 6 months to build something, but it ends up taking a year and a half by the time it gets robust. So that was an interesting journey. But luckily, we had very good investors who backed us and saw the vision and helped us grow in terms of both getting more people to tackle different areas of the product, everything from UI and UX, to the natural language processing, to connectors to different kinds of databases, to a services team that can help deploy the system in different places. So the investors saw the long-term vision, and now I think we're in a stage where we're seeing rapid growth thanks to the work we put in.
Great to hear, and I'm sure, like most startups, they can relate to the project timelines and inevitable challenges that come up within that. Your role has evolved over time. A chief AI officer has a broad responsibility and remit. Could you give us some insight into what your job involves, and most importantly, what do you love most about being the head of AI?
Yeah. So at the beginning of my involvement with Unscrambl, I think my main work was more in designing the product. What is it that we can build that is both technically feasible from an AI and in general systems engineering standpoint, and that solves an interesting and useful pain point in the industry. So once we found the right product market fit, my role has evolved more into coming up with better and better techniques for solving the problem. So now that we know that, we've figured out what a product does, which is conversational analytics. Now I'm focused on how do I improve the accuracy of natural language processing? How do I get and surface better insights to customers and to users? So for instance, if somebody asks, why did my revenue go down in February compared to January? I want to come up with better and better answers to that questions that leads to directly actionable insights. So it's now getting into into improving the accuracy of the NLP. So as we keep having a system being used by different people, we keep coming across newer and newer ways that people can ask questions, because this is an open-ended chat interface. So you can type whatever you want, and in different parts of the world, people can ask questions in completely different ways, which has been interesting learning as well. So I've focused on how we can extract the intents of what people are asking very quickly, and if not able to answer immediately, at least have a nice dialogue or have a nice experience for them to get to the right answer, even if you're not able to detect what they want to ask immediately.
Yeah. How have you managed the transition from being hands-on technical to now in a leadership position? And, what, in your opinion, is the main factors that you focus on when building a successful data team? Obviously, we can focus on the technical aspect of NLP skills, data visualization, engineering, data science. But as you've built a team, what are the things that you've looked for outside of the technical skill set that have allowed you to build a successful team?
That's a good question. So one important factor is that we are a product company, which means we're building a product that can potentially be run against any data set. So that's different from, I would say, most data science work, where you're first given a data set, and then you build a model and you further analyze it, make predictions or classifications. In a product world, it's different. So you build a product which can potentially access or be pointed to any data set, and it should still work, produce interesting insights, answers, and provide value to the end users. So there was an interesting. So not everybody, I think, gets that mindset, the product mindset, as opposed to a more one-off services mindset. So as we build a team, one of the key things we're looking at is how are people do people first have product experience, because that's valuable. Rather than be able to just produce interesting insights on one single data set. Product experience includes a lot of different things. It includes the ability to be able to follow good software engineering practices, be aware of the software engineering lifecycle, aware of and familiar with common collaboration tools like Jira and Git and so on, and be able to even think of what are the right test cases for analytics. How do I even test analytics? How do I be robust? How do I handle data sets where maybe 80% of the data is missing? So so our interview process often involves testing those elements of a person's skill set apart from their say core data science or NLP or analytics skills. So that's one key thing we look at.
Oh, that's great insight into what you look for outside of just the technical skill set. As you guys continue to develop enhancements to your product and creating new products, what does the roadmap look like for you over the next 18 to 24 months? And with that, what further opportunities could there be for data professionals who are interested in this product and feel like this could be somewhere that they would want to be involved in?
Okay, sure, yeah. So in terms of a roadmap, so we have at this point a pretty good version of a product that's usable, but the sky is the limit in terms of new features and new capabilities that people want. So very often when people start asking questions, they often use very loose words to ask, or loose language or ambiguous language to ask what they want. So for instance, like if you have a data set of sales, for instance, you could ask some very precise questions like, what is my revenue in January 2020? Or you could just be vague and just say, what is interesting about January? And now you have to figure out what does interesting mean for this particular user, and how do I best give the answer back to him. So our product is really making a transition or enhancement from giving more factual answers to being able to come up with interesting or surprising insights to end users, which is a very, in general, a very both interesting but also a very tricky problem. Because very often you might come back with very obvious things that the person already knows. So roadmap has coming up with more interesting analytics that can provide what we think will interest their users the most for any given domain. It also includes, we also want to support other languages. So right now, main focus is English. We do support a couple of other languages, Turkish to a small degree, Bahasa, which is a language used in Malaysia and Indonesia. But we don't want to expand to other languages. And as we go to other languages, the ways they ask questions, of course, keeps changing as well. And finally, in terms of a roadmap, we want to build stronger integrations to existing chat platforms. So we just came out with an integration to Microsoft Teams. So if you are a Microsoft Teams user, you can go to the App Store and now download a product and start chatting with Cubo as a bot there. You can connect Cubo to your own databases and now it's access on Teams. So in our roadmap, we're going to support other chat platforms as well, Slack and others too. So lots of interesting angles and directions that we're embarking upon. And in terms of people who want to get involved, there's we have a trial version available that if you go to a website, you can sign up and start spin up an instance of our platform, point it to your favorite data set, and start asking questions. So that's from a user point of view. But we also coming up with ways in which people can keep extending the platform, keep supporting, keep adding their own kinds of analytics. So if you have a cool way of answering, say, forecasting questions, we'd want to be able to incorporate your logic into our platform in some easy ways. So I think there's lots of cool possibilities that we have in our both short-term and long-term forecasts.
Very much so. Very much so. So thinking as many potential clients will do is, how can we implement it into our organization, taking into account historical data? As somebody who spends a lot of time working with the engineering team, but also educating the clients, what are the biggest challenges that you face when it comes to accessing our clients' data in order to utilize your product and then generate these insights and results? And how do you deal with data privacy, data security, and all the various complexities that comes with plugging into new clients all the time?
Yep, no, that's a good question. It is definitely a very challenging problem. But we started off with the goal of solving challenging problems. So when we so our goal is that you can spin up an instance of Cubo Insights and point it to your database. And it doesn't matter how your data is stored in the database. That's our goal. So any query that you make in natural language, we want to convert to the right SQL as per your database. So challenge there is that very often people, the data stored in databases is often very raw, uses a lot of conventions and codes that a business user might not be familiar with. So for instance, in many databases, we've seen that there might be a customer table with a gender field, and they would have values like 0 for other, 1 for male, and 2 for female. So if you're just doing a plain, simple conversion from natural language SQL, you probably wouldn't even know this convention that 1 meant male, 2 meant female. So one of the things that one of the steps that we've had to take for every new customer is that they have to configure something that we call a logical data model, which provides these hints so that we can effectively translate in natural language query to the right SQL query. So if somebody asks how many male customers are there in the US, we know, okay, fine, I need to now translate that to a check for where gender is equal to 1, because we probably won't see the word male anywhere in the data. So one of the key parts in the deployment process and installation process is configuring a logical query model that can bridge the gap between how a business user might ask questions and the terms they may use to how the database represents the data and the terms it uses. So that's we've gotten better and better on that. So now it's almost a self-service based approach where you go through a few forms. We ask you to fill out information about certain information about your tables in the database. And using that, we're able to configure the system and figure out how to train the NLP appropriately. Satisfied and happy with the way that part of the work has come along.
Yeah, as you should be. Sounds very impressive. Anand, thank you so much. This has been it's been a great experience to learn about Unscrambl. Fascinating product, which I think that, could benefit every industry, every company. So congratulations on all the success thus far. We're all very excited to see what you guys are able to accomplish in the near future. And yeah, we look forward to hearing from you again soon.
Thank you so much for your time, JP. And it's been a pleasure speaking with you.
AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Alldus offer an exec search program. Alldus can help you discover how data science and AI can transform your company. With our unrivaled network of C-suite executives and senior AI professionals, we offer retained search services across the US and Europe. For more information, contact mark@alldus.com. Get the Alldus advantage. Become a member of the Alldus community and enjoy some of the following: AI meetups. Once a month, our community gathers to listen to some of the leading experts in the world of data science and AI. Our speakers come from all over the world, including Dublin, Boston, and Frankfurt. We also have our AI mentors. Our experts will provide mentoring to Alldus members. And don't forget our AI in Action podcast. Each week we have guests from all over the world talking us through their education, career, and more. Become an Alldus member and get the Alldus advantage. For more information and to sign up for our newsletter, log on to www.alldus.com. That's www.alldus.com. Alldus International, empowering through AI.